Lee Campser, how are you?
What's up, man? How's it going?
Oh, it's good. Welcome to Government Secrets, episode 29, week 2 of being censored.
How's demonetized life?
Oh, it's awesome, dude. Living out in the fringes of the digital world is fantastic. I'm just scurrying through Google's digital garbage cans to try to stay awake and feed myself. So it's really good. I'm excited.
Do you have the t-shirts made yet? I'm demonetized. How about you?
I should get shirts like that say Political Vigilante and then just put demonetized across it like that. And then on the back, suck at YouTube or something. I don't know.
I mean, now you're legitimately a vigilante. So
yes, I am. This has been my long play. My long goal is to be like when the police would hunt down Batman. I want, and I want someone to just shine the PV light in the sky, and then I come calling. You know what I mean? That's always been my goal.
I think we're getting close. We're getting close.
So yeah, this is welcome everybody. I don't know. What are we? I mean, so here's what's happened in the last week. Nothing in terms of YouTube, nothing at all.
So what's interesting is the other channel or several of the other channels that were demonetized at the exact same time now are back. Jamari
Thomas, a couple other. I think Nico House and Convo Couch are still demonetized.
Ford Fisher's back.
Ford Fisher is back. But some of those shows told me they pulled some of their content down that they thought was the reason they got demonetized. I will not be doing that. All of my content, if they deplatform me altogether.
Listen, if you need to take down government secrets and then deny you ever were a part of this, then I'll understand.
Well, I wouldn't do that because I'm worried about YouTube. I would just do that for personal reasons.
I mean, it could have to do with the way these people responded. Ford Fisher responded by tweeting out, "Hey, I haven't done anything wrong. Please remonetize me." You responded by tweeting dick pics at them. So I think that might be the difference.
Yeah, I have a little more of a eat it, bring it on kind of mentality. I can't in good kind, like friends of mine, even some people that have worked for me are like, well, Graham, you should pull this down or don't, pull I'm like, I'm not, then I'm self-censoring. Quite honestly, I'm doing what they want us to do. Right.
You're absolutely right. And I was on an interview show, good guys, but you could just tell how much the self-censoring had already hit. They said they had been demonetized like this summer and they spent 6 months trying to get out of it. And they weren't cursing and stuff on their shows anymore. And I was like, are people demonetized for cursing now? And they were like, well, we don't know. So we're just being safe. And I can't blame them. They're trying to make a living, but I'm like, Jesus Christ, the self-censorship. I mean, if people aren't even cursing, imagine the topics and discussions people aren't having anymore to just try and maintain, being on YouTube's good side.
And you see how effective it is. Like I've tried to not swear as much just because I don't know, maybe there's
the kids.
For the kids. And also it's also a thing as a comedian, and you can, I'm sure, identify with this. It's for me, it can be a crutch. It's like, you know what I mean? You're doing late shows and you just start swearing and making dick jokes because you're trying to get the crowd back. And, as a comedian, if you're just like saying, this fucking this and fucking, like that's.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gone the reverse way though. I noticed it was a crutch and I was like, I like this. I like these crutches. And if I could just have more, I think I'd be doing pretty well. No, I did. I totally agree with you. And I've seen some I don't know if it was, I guess I was doing a bit, it was stand up, but I was ad libbing and it was probably late at night. And I saw some video myself and I was just like, fucking fuck. And like the punchline of the joke was fuckity fuck. And, and I was like, that's getting to be too much. But in general, across my career, I actually became, I didn't curse at all. I was basically completely clean when I started. And I then became more political. And I then realized that, like, as I became more political, I became angrier. As I became angrier, not cursing on stage seemed like bizarre. It seemed like this guy's got some sort of problem. He's furious, and yet he's saying, you know, fidget sticks. So,
well, we're going to talk about Operation Fidget Sticks on the show today. No, but yeah, it's funny. I go back and forth because I've done the same thing of like, I don't want to just swear just for swear's sakes. And then I'll watch clips of like Carlin's last special in 2003 or whatever. He's like, these cocksuckers don't give a fuck about you. And I'm like, yeah, Carlin can say, you know, yes, he's right. Like, I feel like it's okay that I swear, but, you know, the swearing thing, I will not swear, just as we talked about, because I want to be and look, I've had plenty of dick jokes in my act as a comedian. When young comics come to me and say, do you have any tips? I always say, learn how to work really clean, because dick jokes are easy. It's easy to do dick jokes. We all have them. I'm not holier than thou, but learn how to work clean, because then you can work anywhere. And you also, again, you can fall in these crutches or bad habits of like not getting to the smartest joke. You're just falling. But then again, that's as a comedian. If I'm not swearing because I'm worried about Google, then they can, you know, suck a bag of fidget sticks. You know what I mean? Like
then those twiddle muckers can go shove it up their woo-ha.
They can really just make me so cross that I'm just fit to be tied. So I
am fit to be tied.
I'm fit to be tied. Bring it on in a constructive manner. You know, like it doesn't add up.
Yeah, yeah. But the self-censorship of topics has got to be, I mean, people don't really talk about it because we talk about when you are, you know, actively censored, but the self-censorship has got to be immense nowadays, where, I mean, the only time I thank God right now, there's no reason for me to self-censor topics and issues and things like that. But I do self-censor the way I title videos now. I mean, you know, I'll do something about how the U.S. is funding fucking, you know, basically Al-Qaeda offshoots or beheading people in Syria. And I'll title it like, I like this Disney special and you will too, you know, so like what choice do you have?
I know, just like kittens playing with pudding. And then it's really about the war crimes of all of our presidents.
Just in the title of these videos, we did JFK assassination part 1. And that's when we found out that if you put JFK assassination in the title, they'll put a thing underneath that's half a paragraph long. I mean, that says they're lying to you. And so then now in part 2 and 3, it's just JFK part 2.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, so it's like, I'm really, and you know, this last 2 weeks, it's been really cool to see everybody in our world kind of rally around. I've done a bunch of shows. I've had, you've mentioned it. Other people, Kim Iverson, people have mentioned it. They brought me on their show, but in a lot of private conversations we're having, they're like, well, you should pull this down, or I've pulled that down, or I don't. And so everybody's self-censoring. And that's why this is dangerous, you know. And I did that article with Muhammad, I forget his last name, that just went out on Sputnik. And I put that because here's the other thing too. And this is the thing when everyone's like, oh, you got to get remonetized. Okay. So let's say I play ball with them and I get remonetized. Who's to say a month, 6 months from now, they do the same thing all over again, or they just deplatform me altogether because God forbid I let some truth slip. So I'm just like, I'm pivoting away from them, because I've went through this in show business. Okay. I've been,
right.
You know, like,
that's why we're on YouTube. Yeah,
exactly. We're on YouTube because, you know, none of our comedy specials about all this lefty anti-war stuff, when Netflix is never going to give us a comedy special. Comedy Central, it's never going to happen. So to me, I'm just like, where's the platform and the, you know, the financial setup that I can do what I want to do the way I want to do it. And it's like, it's Rockfin. I'm going to start putting my videos up on Odyssey as well. They're a crypto platform. But like, just see, you know, like a year ago, the Rockfin, the Ray token was worth about, it was at 17 cents. It jumped up to 50 cents. And now it's trading roughly between $3.50 and $4. So you're already getting more value for it. And I can say whatever I want, you know, and I just don't want to change the show. I don't want to like hold back from what I'm doing. I mean, I've been talking about wanting to do more comedic commentary on this. It's something you and I have talked about just for my own like mental health, because every day you're just talking about horrific stuff. Before I got demonetized, I was like, I mean, you and I think I had a phone call. I was like, dude, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And you're like, Graham, that's why I make sure I like write punchlines into these segments.
Yeah.
So I will start doing more comedy just for that reason, but not because I'm worried Eric Schmidt's, you know, black vans are going to snatch me up.
Yeah. I mean, I said to you, I kind of have to have the comedy in a fair amount of it. I'm not saying I never have serious things. And in fact, most of the interviews I do rather seriously, because I find it tough. I find it tougher to be like silly in an interview than I do when I'm writing comedy or whatever. But
yeah, because you got to play off them. Like, I'm going to be silly. You and I are going to be silly because we know the other guy's going to laugh. If you're doing it with some like journalist politician person, they're just going to go,
oh yeah, it's the worst. It's the worst. It did make me feel better. It was like, oh, this isn't like my fault. Like, I've watched great comedians that are not me. You know, the other great comedians. I've watched great comedians be on like morning news stuff, and they just bomb horribly because people like these fucking idiots interviewing them. I saw one with Lewis Black once where they were like, so Lewis, last week was the midterm elections. How you feeling this week? He's like, any day I don't have to wake up and vote, I'm fucking happy. And they just stared at him and they were like, really? You don't like voting? And I was like, oh, this is fucking awful.
Oh, God. I mean, honestly, it's why I love Peter Lavelle, because he laughs. He loves bringing me on the show because he knows I'm going to cut up the Democrats and he's a conservative or whatever, but he laughs. I love doing his show because I'll say something and he'll start laughing and the neoliberal on the panel will get all
I think that it's the people who actually allow themselves to be human beings when they're in front of a television camera that are great. I think I got my TV show out of it because I used to go on Abby Martin's show and she was one of the only people where I'd go on and she'd actually laugh when I was doing bits, and so the other people watching were like, I think this is funny because the host is laughing.
Yeah, because Abby Martin just allows herself to have fun. She's not just, and some of these journalists, when they ask you these questions and they don't laugh, I'm like, either A, they just don't get it, or they're just not listening. You know what I mean? Like, they just have their like earpiece in and their questions set, and no matter what you say, they're just going to go, mm-hmm. Like if they were like, what do you think, the policies of the president should be? And you're like, I think they should outlaw donkeys and make dog food the national flag. Good question. So let me ask you this. And you're like, oh, you weren't listening. You weren't listening to anything I just said. You didn't go, what? What are you out of your mind?
Yeah, what was it? I think one of the Wayne's Worlds, isn't it Wayne's World where he's doing a radio interview and Harry Shearer's the radio show host. And he's just like, you're not listening to a word I'm saying, are you? And he's like, yep. And he's like, I could say, my ass sphincter loves your mother. Or whatever. And he's like, yep. Oh, excellent.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just like, have you done a lot of those morning radio and entertainment interviews? God, I remember when I hosted the game shows and they'd have me fly around the country and do all these like whatever Good Morning Omaha type shows. Oh, and God, you could say that I would try to like weave something in to see how much they wouldn't get it. Just be like, well, we're really excited. The show's doing a lot of fun. And, she's like, who's involved? I'm like, oh, this person's involved, that person involved, Abraham Lincoln's involved, and Joan of Arc. And so it's really like we've got a great writing team, and they'd be like, oh, that sounds fantastic.
Oh, man. And you were like, I'm glad I'm finally taken seriously in this life. Really gotten to a point where people respect and understand my work.
It's so great. It's so great. My words clearly matter that you're like dozed off in the middle of me talking. So it's fantastic what's happening. Well, what do we want to do? But I've got to.
Should we get into something deeper than morning news shows laughing or failing to?
I don't know.
So let's wrap up the whole JFK assassination.
JFK wrap up segment. Oswald did it, according to YouTube.
YouTube. Disclaimer from YouTube. Oswald acted alone. He managed to shoot JFK from the front while behind him.
Jack Ruby was just a disgruntled American that loved his president.
So this one will be, I think, fairly short. I don't have that much left to give. I mean, there's tons of stuff in JFK and the Unspeakable that everybody should check out. But I kind of wanted to give, bigger issues or points so that people could look into the finer details. So for those who haven't listened to the first three segments, we went over the why JFK had to be assassinated according to the deep state, the CIA, those in our, ruling our empire who wanted to continue the Cold War and continue our wars in general in order to cement our empire. And JFK was getting in the way of that because he was having a change of mind in terms of these wars and in terms of Russia. So we went over that. We went over all the evidence that he was shot from the front and not the back, or at very least shot from both the front and the back. But seems likely it was perhaps just the front. And then last week we went into a bunch of things showing that there were almost definitely, multiple people calling themselves Oswald. At least one other that looked a lot like him and ran around saying, "Oh, I'm Lee Oswald, and I would like to blow up the FBI headquarters."
Right. I love Stalin and Bush. Right.
Man, this car I'm test driving sucks. I'm going to have to go to the Soviet Union to get a better vehicle of sorts. They have better stuff there, and I will have to go back there or kill a president.
I think you overcharged me for this loaf of bread, and I support the Communist Manifesto. My name is Lee Harvey Oswald. Hello, everybody at the Pay and Pack.
I know this is a weird thing to say at the dollar store, but I would like you all to know that this president needs to die.
Could I cash this check and have it converted to rubles because I support Marxism more and I hate and I want to kill American presidents? Can I get this changed at the bank here? My name's Lee Harvey Oswald. I'll show you identification. Here's my Russian passport. Does this help?
Here's my Russian passport. I always travel with this. Also, I need rubles and not dollars because this has a president on the front of it, and I hate that this dollar has that president on it, so I need to kill presidents.
Yeah. If you give me a dollar bill, I will have to kill presidents.
So, one more massive witness that really it pulls a lot of threads together, and it shows how the second Oswald, whoever this other CIA man was that was running around saying he's Oswald, how he and by the way, it seems likely, although there's not. The JFK and the Unspeakable doesn't go that deeply into the killing of the police officer, but it seems likely that this other guy killed the police officer. So for those who don't know, right after the JFK is shot, within an hour or two after JFK is shot, a police officer is killed by, quote unquote, by Oswald. And Oswald then runs into a movie theater where he's arrested. It seems likely that this other guy killed the police officer. And anyway, this witness, so U.S. Air Force Sergeant Robert Venson, he has a bizarre story. He's leaving, I guess, D.C. or something, and he goes to Andrews Air Force Base, and he is trying to hitch a ride to Denver. He wants to get home to Denver. And there's not a plane going there, but they tell him, well, if one comes in that's headed that way, you can hitch a ride. This probably was fairly common back then for Air Force people. And so he's waiting.
I will add this. That's still sort of common today in my experiences traveling as a comedian through the military. When I went to the Middle East, you could hitch a ride the way like, off-duty flight attendants and pilots can just sort of jump on planes. That happens all the time. I mean, that's like, and as comedians, we would be like, oh, this flight's full, but we checked the manifest. There's a couple of seats on this flight, so we'll fly you to Kuwait, like that. So that still happens today. That's a common thing. Okay,
so yeah, that makes sense. And he, so they say if one comes in, we'll give you a ride. We'll let you know. So they let him know. Oh, this plane came in. You can go jump on it and go to Denver. So he goes onto the plane. It's like a plane he's never seen. It's unlike any plane he's never seen before. It doesn't have any demarcations except just a globe on the rear tail that says that it's just an earth with lines around it. And now he finds out weeks later that that's the symbol for the CIA. So he gets on this plane. There's nobody on it except the pilots. They basically say nothing to him. He buckles himself in and they start flying. And somewhere over the Midwest, the pilot comes over and says at whatever time, I don't remember the time, but at whatever time the president was shot and killed. And with like no emotion and no like, let's talk about this or, oh shit. But so they just say that, he hears nothing more. They then, rather than going to Denver, they land along a riverbed. Like there's this floodplain area along the Trinity River in Dallas. And they land alongside this riverbed. It's now nighttime or dusk. And two men get on the plane. He doesn't recognize either of them. Two men get on the plane, glance at him, and then walk to the front area or whatever by the pilots and say nothing to him. They keep flying, and then the plane lands somewhere. These two men don't say another word, get off the plane and hustle off. He finds out later when he gets home to a television set, turns it on and everything, that this guy looks a lot like Oswald. And he's like, that's the fucking guy that was on the plane. Where they had landed, and the pilots get off too. So he's basically left seated on an empty plane. And he's like, what the fuck? So he gets off and he goes to, a small whatever that runs the tarmac there, small little building. And he talks to a police officer. He says, where am I? And he's at Roswell Air Force Base in New Mexico. So he then takes a bus. He eventually gets home to Denver. And he realizes what he's seen. That he's seen either Oswald or an Oswald lookalike basically escaping Dallas on a CIA flight. He realizes he's seen something that he should not have seen. And he also knows that because he had to sign his name on the docket when he was getting on the flight, that eventually they'll realize that he was on this flight. They'll realize what he saw. So he doesn't say anything. But he's soon thereafter offered a position with the CIA. And he says he's right then he was Air Force. And he says he doesn't want it. He wants to retire. But he doesn't tell anyone what he saw except his wife. Then they basically, a few weeks later, tell him he can't retire. He has to take this position with the CIA. So they basically force him. And they pay him heavily for both his Air Force job and his CIA job. And later, he comes forward in 1993. And he reveals his story, and he says he understood. It was never discussed, but he understood what was going on. He was basically put into the CIA and paid well to remain quiet. It was just kind of understood There was no reason for them to force him into this CIA job because he says he was not overly qualified. He never discussed interest in it. There was no reason for him to be basically forced into this job, except he knew the real reason. And so he never said a word until 93. He got a lot of money to, be CIA and everything. And then he comes forward in 93, and that's how we know his story. But it pulls together all the threads. How did this other Oswald get out of Dallas? Was this other Oswald CIA? A lot of threads come together. So,
yeah, it's really like that's the double Oswald thing is again another thing that's commonly sort of missed in the JFK conspiracy theories is how, and again, I mean, but this also, like you say, pulled together the threads of like Oswald himself saying, I'm a patsy, like I'm a patsy. Like this is insane. He was just watching movies and they, loosely constructed a kind of plausible timeline of Oswald left his place of living, shot this cop that ended up in the theater. Like it was really like, and
yeah, I mean, because he was clearly either CIA, Oswald himself was either CIA or a CIA informant or something. Mm-hmm. They, like I said in the last episode, they could move him around and tell him where to go. And so they had told him to go to DC, and he wrote to the Soviet embassy and said he was coming to DC. And then he didn't because they changed the plot to do it in Dallas. So he was then rerouted to Dallas. But it's almost definite that he wasn't given the reason for most of his moves. He was going where they were telling him to go. And the reason it's quite possible the reason they decided to use him as a patsy is because he was kind of going against his handling. He was not responding well to what he was involved in or to being involved in it or whatever. And here's another, stop me if I told this last time, but I'm almost certain I didn't. But here's the other, ironclad proof that he was connected to the CIA is when he's in custody before he's killed, he insists on a phone call and he gives the number 834-7430 in North Carolina. And he asked the operator back then, right? You asked the operator to put you through. It's the operator at the police station. She is told not to put the call through. She's told to get rid of to tell him they couldn't get through or whatever and not put the call through. But she keeps a copy of the number. And later, through, I think, FOIA requests, investigators get a hold of the number Oswald tried to call. And they look into it. Who was at that number in North Carolina around that time? And it turns out it was a guy named John Hurt, who was U.S. Army counterintelligence special agent. And John Hurt denies, says he has no idea why Oswald would try to call him. But keep in mind, this guy is suspected of killing the president and has basically one call. So this call must have been fucking important to him. And he calls this counterintelligence guy. And
what if he was just calling his college roommate? Dude, you're not going to believe the day I'm having.
Man, flip on the news. This is wild.
I went to the movies and now they're trying to hang this around my neck. Oh my God. This is like that time we got busted for sneaking in the back a quarter beer night. I mean, this is nuts.
But so a former CIA officer who's well known as a former CIA whistleblower, basically whistleblower in that he came forward and has told how the CIA does what they do. His name's Victor Marchetti. And he's come forward about how the CIA works. And he says that it's very clear what Oswald was doing. Oswald was following standard CIA protocol, which is to call your case officer through a cutout. A cutout is someone who's a clean intermediary, has no connection to you, but in an emergency would know how to get a hold of your case officer. So this Marchetti says this pretty much proves Oswald was a CIA double agent. He had been spying on the Soviets when he was there, when he was in the Soviet Union, and now he'd run afoul of the agency. And so he was trying to call his cutout so that he could say, look, you know, I didn't do this, but I've been grabbed up in it. And he apparently had been burned. Like they weren't going to have anything to do with him. It's fairly clear they didn't even put through the call, that the police didn't even put through the call. But they were setting him up to be their patsy. So him getting a hold of his cutout wasn't going to change that. But that's another piece of like ironclad proof that Oswald was connected to the CIA. So I'm just going to give one last thing and then we'll wrap it up. That's interesting, that which is that in these setups, you know, they have multiple patsies, and I mentioned last time, they have multiple patsies, but you don't know the other ones because they never came into play. They were never useful. So the CIA set them up to be a patsy, but never used them. And I don't think I mentioned this in the last episode, but I think I hinted to it, was that 3 weeks before JFK is assassinated, an entirely different assassination plot was outed in Chicago against JFK that was almost identical to what ended up happening in Dallas. And so it seems pretty evident that it was like the CIA had multiple scenarios set up. And one was to take him out in Chicago. And they arrested an ex-military man named Thomas Arthur Valley, who would have probably been nailed as the patsy if it had happened in Chicago. Just like Oswald, he was given a job at a facility overlooking a hairpin turn on the president's supposed route, that would have happened if Kennedy had come to Chicago. Now, Kennedy canceled his trip to Chicago hours before it happened. So if he had come to Chicago, they already knew what the president's motorcade route would have been. And this guy, ex-military, was given this job a few weeks beforehand at this place overlooking the motorcade at a turn. And the reason the turn is important is because that's where the motorcade slows down to a speed where you could get a shot off. And so Valley, it's quite possible that if Kennedy had gone to Chicago, right now we'd be discussing Thomas Arthur Valley instead of Lee Harvey Oswald.
Wow. So is there a Thomas Arthur Valley just running around like Wisconsin going, I want to buy cheese for Stalin? Is that what happened? Like,
I don't know if anyone dug into it that much, but it's quite possible. Well, the other thing is that if there had been, you wouldn't ever find out because those witnesses wouldn't have no reason to come forward because Valley never killed anyone.
Right.
Like all these people came forward after they were like, that's the guy who fucking came in here yelling about the Soviet Union.
Right. I mean, God. Oh, and it's so, you know, being that Google works with the CIA for data collection. We know this thanks to Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. It makes these CIA long-standing operations, it makes you like proud to be an American, right? That they've just been single-handedly ruining everything for decades.
You said that with so much enthusiasm. It makes you proud to be an American, I guess.
Yes.
Guess that's what we get from that.
Yeah, it's my
American.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what this does is, once you understand and accept that the CIA really did take out Kennedy, and that as the only trial ever held in MLK's assassination, we know that government agencies took out MLK. I mean, you really see what this was, and this was the empire's rulers deciding they needed war. They needed a Cold War. They needed to, quote unquote, defeat communism. They could not have different nations existing in different ways. because they viewed it as an existential threat to their empire and to their profiting off really most of the world. And they viewed JFK and MLK as existential threats because they had the power, they had the people behind them, and they had, in MLK, in JFK's instance, changed his mind and became, you know, anti-belligerent and not anti-capitalist, but at least willing to allow different systems around the world in order to allow for peace. MLK outwardly came out against capitalism and against the war in Vietnam, and they were too powerful and too much of a risk to these entities that ruled at that time. And really, that was a fork in the road for America. You know, I think that those entities in most ways still rule over our system.
Oh yeah. I mean, you want to point to a time in history that had they not killed, and I would add to the mix Fred Hampton, having, you know, studied him for this show, for my show, Political Vigilante. And we both know about Fred Hampton, and having watched most of the Netflix Judas and the Black Messiah, again, he was another guy that unified people. And anytime you unify people, you're a threat to the power structure. Anytime, you know, and it's like, same thing with Bobby Kennedy, who would have taken what Jack was, you know, Jack's sort of transformation. He was going to really take it to the next level. He would have got us out of Vietnam. I mean, it would have been, who knows what he would have done. And they just got to kill him. I mean, it's not a coincidence that Gerald Ford was on the Warren Commission, and oh, hey, weird, he becomes vice president, and oh, hey, weird, he becomes president after Nixon's busted for Watergate. Like, well, again,
there is a crazy moment that you can find on YouTube of, and it's not like a smoking gun or anything, but it raises an eyebrow. It's George H.W. Bush, the older Bush, at Gerald Ford's funeral. Have you seen this?
No, but I know H.W. Bush has got a pretty sordid past himself in terms of being the head of the CIA, and might even have his fingers in the Kennedy assassination, but go ahead.
Right, right. And so he's at Gerald Ford's funeral, and during the eulogy decides to bring up that JFK was killed by a crazy lone gunman, and he smirks in a bizarre way. Like, he smirks as he says it, and then he says, "Thank goodness we had Gerald Ford on the Warren Commission to convince people that was the truth," basically. And you're kind of like, dude, not only did you say this in the weirdest way possible, but during this guy's eulogy? What the fuck?
Yeah, it's pretty horrific. I mean, it's like they just did it in plain sight. And that eulogy is part of that. Like, not only do they do it in plain sight, but they did it just enough. I mean, as we've talked about in this series, this now 4-part series, that part of it was everybody went, well, God, if they can kill the president and get away with it, where am I? I'm not going to speak up, you know, and that just keeps everybody quiet. Kind of back to the discussion of the top of the show of how Google knew demonetizing, 12 shows in 3 days or whatever happened 2 weeks ago we're all self-censoring a little bit. Everybody's a little worried. It's just like, and if people,
well, before that, there was the 800 on one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been doing this for a while. And if anybody gets too, I mean, they did like smaller and mid-level shows like mine. They didn't do any big 500,000 or more subscriber shows for now. But if anybody gets too bold, look, I mean, they could take out Jimmy. They could do anybody like that. They could do you. They could do. And it's like, if anybody thinks they can't come for you, you're wrong. And that's, again, why circumventing these, they have all they have this infrastructure in place to divide us, to get us fighting with each other, to keep us afraid, which is why I don't know. I'm such a huge advocate for like crypto and Rockfin and that thing Susie Dawson and Bill Binney are doing, pancake.com, because this is the thing that they can't control. The internet was the last place where we could like really call out the powerful. They bought all the media, and the internet is the last place they can do that. The internet is the last place where we can bring up these facts and this history of the CIA's evil and people like George H.W. Bush, who is a maggot-ridden piece of shit that produced a bunch of soulless fuck children, soulless fiddlestick children.
Yeah, come on, man.
Yeah, my fault. And anyone at the CIA or NSA watching this, you're a soulless piece of shit who's going to rot in hell no matter how many shows you demonetize. Like, there is a lake of fire waiting for you, and the devil's going to skull fuck you for eternity. So I hope you're listening to the CIA. No matter what you do, you're going to get burned for 1,000 million years.
That's skull fudge you.
Skull fudge you. You're going to get skull fudged for eternity in a lake of popsicles. It really, these are awful, evil people. We are fighting the evil empire, and we need to pick up Emperor Palpatine and throw him into a big electric dishwasher or whatever that happened in Return of the Jedi. So that's, I think, the conclusion of the JFK 4-episode arc. It begs the question, Lee. Did the CIA, were they involved in Leafgate? Did the CIA make my electric car smashed up?
I think we started to address this last week. I'm pretty certain that it was like CIA working with big oil, you know,
because now, look, here I am driving a rental car that goes on the evil gas. So now Graham's part of the evil machine. And I wouldn't be surprised if the CIA loosened that woman's Toyota truck front tire.
Probably, likely. I mean, they got to me too. They made my last car get not quite as hot, not quite as cool. And so I was forced into getting a new car that's powered. It's actually entirely powered on endangered species. You can't. You just put
condor eggs in the tank.
It's just condors and snow leopards. And I mean, weirdly, if you put in something that's just like doing all right, like a deer or something, or like a raccoon, it wants nothing to do with it. It'll just spit it. It regurgitates it straight back up.
And the turbo version is where they put the tears of baby harp seals. They put the tears of baby harp seals in there, and that gives it a little extra horse.
Yeah, a little extra boost. Yeah.
Like a boom, boom. Oh God. All right. So let's do the final segment here. Now we haven't done one of these in a while, but it's been a while since we've done an operation something, right? So I want to talk about, again, our good friends at the CIA, and we're going to share the screen on this.
We could have called this show "Fuck You, CIA." Like that could have been the whole podcast.
Just fuck you, CIA. No matter what happens, CIA, we will win in the end when you get skull fudged. So this is Operation.
Can we call it skull lovemaking, please?
Skull, yes, skull lovemaking. You're gonna get skull love. You're gonna have love made to your skull. It's gonna
romantic, be sweet Valentine's Day rom-com skull lovemaking.
Oh, there's gonna be like candles, chocolate covered roses or whatever, and like Barry White music, like all the discotheques better be ready. Like, just, let's make sweet love to your skull tonight. Like, fantastic.
Mr. CIA man.
Oh, well, again, let's our Operation Cyclone. God, do I love a good operation one. It's just so much fun when we get to have an operation, because anytime there's, you and I both know, and the viewers and listeners to this show, by the way, please hit the like button, folks. Hit the like and subscribe button to both of our YouTube channels. And if you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify or whatever, please hit 5-star review and share this podcast out there on all your social media platforms.
And I know we got a lot of new listeners with the JFK series, because many of the videos had 3 or 4 times what we normally get. So if you're new to this, please go back and check previous episodes, because a lot of what we do, probably like 90%, is evergreen. So I think you'd very much like the older episodes as well.
Yeah, and even in the older episodes where like some current event were to have happened, we usually would find some historical reference that was like similar, like other times this what's happening today. This is this is how we've done this in the past. So it's a really and again, go to rockfin.com. It's free to sign up. Lee and I are both on Rockfin. We put government secrets on Rockfin. And then for $10 a month, you get everybody, Lee, me, Jimmy, Whitney Webb, everybody's premium content on Rockfin. And it's blockchain and it's cryptocurrency, so they can't demonetize us like the good folks at Google have done. But here's Operation Cyclone. I just go on searches. I'll just like CIA operation. And then literally, this is a fun game to play. Just pick a letter of the alphabet. And in the search window, I recommend using ecosia.org. It's a non-for-profit rather than using Google, but you'll just, because when you'll do operation, CIA operation, and then it'll list a long one, just do A and they'll be like Anaconda or whatever. So I got to see, and we're Operation Cyclone, because I really wanted to see the CIA's operations in Afghanistan. So, because we are coming up, we are in the 20th year of that war. So if anyone's wondering why people like JFK got assassinated, it's because he wanted to end endless war. This was the code name for the United States Central Intelligence Program to arm and finance the Mujahideen, which were against the Soviet militants in Afghanistan from 79 to 89. So just a little history lesson for everybody. It was 1979 that the Soviet Union entered Afghanistan. And we said, we got to stop Soviet aggression. So we armed the Mujahideen. And we did this for about 10 years. The Mujahideen were also supported by Britain's MI6, who conducted separate covert actions. The program leaned heavily towards supporting militant Islamic groups, including groups with jihadist ties. Oh, it's a good thing we're not doing that anymore. And
yeah, we learned our lesson.
Totally. We learned our lesson. Yeah. It's not like we armed the Mujahideen and then just bailed on the country that had like an 80% illiteracy rate and then just let them become the Taliban, who became really horrific fundamentalist Muslims that were like stoning women in soccer stadiums for, adultery, and then had to go back there again in 2001 after 9/11. It's not like that. None of that happened. Good thing we it's not like this is part of our horrific lineage in the Middle East of always being on the wrong side of something to just keep the war machine going. Or maybe it was by design, like always back the horrible people, so we'll always have war. So they were favored by the regime, Muhammad Zal al-Haq in neighboring Pakistan, rather than other less ideological Afghan resistance groups that had also been fighting the Soviet-oriented Democratic Republic of Afghanistan regime since before the Soviet intervention. So the Soviets backed the Democratic Republic of Afghanistan. And not that the Soviets were like, they weren't coming in there to spread, peace or whatever, but we couldn't have the Soviet Union get Afghanistan, because that would have given the Soviets a pipeline to oil. It's all about pipelines, just like what's happening in Syria, right? So we helped, this Syrian civil war because Russia and Iran want to run a pipeline through Syria, and we want to run our pipeline with the Saudis through Syria, and Assad wouldn't let us do it. So that's why he suddenly became a brutal dictator. Now, had he let us have that pipeline, we'd love Assad.
He also dropped the petrodollar, which
Ooh,
Not,
boy, that's an instant bullseye on your forehead.
Yeah, not a good thing to do. If you want to see how insane this was, you know who one of these mujahideen was? I'm sure many people know is Osama bin Laden.
Yay!
And I just if you want to pull it up, I put the link in the private chat with you. It's an article about the 1993 article showing bin Laden as a freedom fighter. And once you scroll down a little, you'll see an image of the cover of, I think it's the Independent newspaper. But these articles were not uncommon of like, look how these noble freedom fighters in Afghanistan.
Let me bring up I'm going to bring this up here.
And many of the caves and the tunnels and stuff that that Al Qaeda was hiding in Afghanistan was built by the CIA to help the Mujahideen.
Yes, this article from December 6, 1993 by Robert Fisk of The Independent with the anti-Soviet warrior puts his arms on the road to peace.
So scroll down and find the image of the newspaper. It's incredible. There it is.
Yes. Anti-Soviet warrior puts his army on the road to peace. Osama bin Laden. So like, and this is, I'm sure he was co-opted and paid through Operation Cyclone, right? So they got Mujahideen leaders, and that's why it was such a joke. And that this is what we do. We say this person's a hero, then they're bad, and the American people just gobble it up. They just gobble it up. It's fantastic to watch. Just like, look, if you know, and then we put up this new Juan Guaido, and if Juan Guaido does something bad against the CIA, we'll be like, Juan Guaido's been a murderous disaster farmer since day one. It's like, wait, I thought he was. I mean, look at this. It's a positive profile of a man who would become a global terrorist mastermind.
And look how happy he is to get the media coverage. He's smiling so big.
Hey, thanks for my CIA. Osama bin Laden sat in his gold-fringed robe, guarded by loyal Arab mujahideen. With his high cheekbones, narrow eyes, and long brown robe, Mr. bin Laden looks every inch the mountain warrior of the Mujahideen legend.
I mean, it also shows how we never consider blowback at all. We just consider what facilitates our aims right now. And we almost exclusively, it has to do with weapons and war. You know, like, we could, they estimate that you could end world hunger for $30 billion a year. So the United States could end it's like a rounding error in our Pentagon budget. The United States could end world hunger each year. And do you have any idea how secure that would make us as a nation? We'd be the most secure fucking nation in the world because countries wouldn't want to blow us up. So
yes, it's unbelievable. Like, it's just like we got to blow everything up because we've got enemies in the world, and then we just create more enemies. Again, like, okay, so the Soviet Union goes in there, we're like, well, we got to stop. So we back the Mujahideen. And then what if we had like built schools and infrastructure? Then the Taliban wouldn't have gained a foothold, right? And like, oh, let's push in more sort of progressive Islamic leaders that aren't like looking at women as second-class citizens. And they could have made it into this progressive culture. And it's like, nah.
Well, and also the progressive leaders generally don't want to have the fist of the United States up their ass. And so in the times where we have put progressive leaders in, they tend to turn against us, quote unquote, meaning they don't want to be our fucking servant, man boys. And then we turn against them when they turn against us. So.
Yeah, and it's just like what so escapes these dimwit, narrow-minded shitheads at the CIA and the State Department is that if we actually spread peace and food, we would, like you say, all of these problems would go away. I mean, like, everyone's fed. We're going to feed the world. There's no, like, where would would there be crime? A handful of it. But would anyone want to blow us up? Would anyone want to do this? Would there be crime in America? Would people need to commit crimes and stuff? There'd be some, but it would be minimal if we did all of these benevolent things. It would really.
Yeah. I mean, the vast majority of crime stems from inequality and economic force. You know, you are having a tough life. You tend to turn to tough ways to make that life better. So, yeah, it's. I mean, without a doubt. But the reason they won't do that type of thing is because that would allow a society to grow up and to grow strong. It would allow for that society to have innovation and growth and healthy people that then could be a stronger society. And so our fucking sociopathic rulers then view that as a threat. Even if that society is not coming after us, even if that society is not threatening us, even if that society is only worried about their own people and building up their own people, we still view our sociopath, our oligarchs view that as a threat because that means, wait, they're a successful, stable society. That is why, you know, that is similarly why we hate Iran or Venezuela. These were succeeding, stable societies. And so it wasn't just the resources, which, yes, it's nice that Venezuela has more oil reserves than any country, but that's not the heart of the reason.
Yeah, they're all such great points. We could this, and then, you know, you go to capitalism, and people stressed about money. Well, that in every time there's an economic that domestic violence goes up, petty crime goes up, you know, child abuse goes up because there's all these, like you say, outside economic pressures. And how much of this would be, again, we're not, like you say, we're not thinking about, the oligarchs at least aren't, how do we make society better? Isn't that what we should be doing? Progressing as a society, like getting better, eradicating hunger, eradicating poverty, crime, working towards a common goal for the betterment of the human race and the planet? Nope, just got to get mine. You know, got to put my knee on your face and take some nickels out of your pocket and then kick you in the mouth and arrest you for getting blood on my boot. And like, that's just like, they're short-sighted and dumb. They don't even see how bad their long-term sustainability of their plan is. Yeah,
it's short-term greedy. It really, I mean, they'll collapse the environment and the world around us in order to get the money they're stealing for next month. Whereas most of these corporations and most of these oligarchs, they would be far better off if we had a stable, successful society that could go long-term, but they don't think long-term.
Nope, they don't. And they're just afraid that, oh, if everyone's taken care of, I might not be able to have 10 yachts. And it's just like, oh God, you're useless. You're absolutely useless. Well, I don't know, buddy. I think that's it. I know. Is that all about GovSeeks?
I think we did it, and I think we solved most of America's problems. I think we solved the greatest of all murder mysteries, and you know, that's important. I mean, and the other reason these things are important is because I feel like once people start to question, like once they see how much bullshit the official story of JFK is, they start going, what the fuck else are they lying to us about? So it helps. I know a lot of people who woke up because they found out about the MLK trial in 1999 that no one ever talks about.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, because it's not like the CIA went, well, JFK was a one-off. You know,
let's never do that again. That was wild, right, folks?
That was too much work. We're just going to not meddle anymore. We're just going to kind of make sure everything's safe. So it's like, if they can kill the president of the United States, they can do anything, and they're not the good guys. And we need to expose all of it anywhere that we possibly can. So yeah, it is kind of great. Because like I thought I knew, I'll be honest with you, I thought I knew a fair amount about the JFK assassination and the cover-up. But you going into that book, tell us the name of the book again.
JFK and the Unspeakable. I think it's really highly regarded as one of the best, because it's not just how well it's all put together, but it just has so many sources and footnotes if you want to do further reading and stuff. But no, I too I I don't know. Until recently, I didn't look that much into the JFK assassination. I assumed there was some shit going down, but I didn't really look into it. So,
yeah, JFK and the NC, a very thick book. Although YouTube has a Oswald did it. It's like a leaflet, and they just give that. And anytime you buy that book, they just stick that on the front of it.
Yeah, yeah, it's just a couple of pages stapled together. Says Oswald did it. It's actually scratch and sniff, which I like. I like that part.
And they just staple it on the front of the book whenever you buy it, just like just so you know. You can read this long version of nonsense, or just scratch and sniff that Oswald did.
And you just scratch it. It smells like freedom. It smells like it's barbecue ribs and French fries.
Yep, in a beer can with an American Eagle on it. That's made in China. So it's fantastic. So all right, buddy. Well, this is great. Well, this is Government Secrets. Where can people watch all your stuff that hasn't been demonetized yet?
I'm at rockfin.com/LeeCamp. I'm just shadow banned. I'm old school shadow banned. So shadow banned unite.
Yeah.
People haven't seen my Facebook page hasn't been seen by a living soul in, I'd say, 3-4 years. Rockfin.com/LeeCamp. I'm also, all my stuff's at LeeCamp.com. I have a TV show called Redacted Tonight. I have other podcasts and such, but just check out LeeCamp.com.
Yeah, folks, this is the comedy team of shadow banned and demonetized. I'll
be your since you're now the Batman vigilante. I'll be your sidekick, but I'm not wearing any little red underwear.
Oh, come on, buddy. That was kind of the whole point, is just to run around in red underwear. Go to GrahamElwood.com. Since I've been demonetized, YouTube basically was about 60% of my revenue. So if you can help me out I have a PayPal button at GrahamElwood.com. I have a Venmo, which is at Graham-Elwood. In the show notes of all my YouTube videos, I also have a Bitcoin and an Ethereum wallet. And again, really go to rockfin.com. That's how you can support everything that we're doing. And of course I have a Patreon and all that. So I'll still be posting on YouTube, but not as much videos on YouTube. I'm going to be posting everything on Rockfin. Since I have no faith that YouTube is going to bring me back, because even if they do, they're going to stick it to me again down the road or make me self-censor or whatever. So I'm just going to
try tweeting loving notes to them. I think
I love you, YouTube. So yeah, I'm going to just use YouTube as a promotional platform. Since I have 78,000 subscribers, I'm just going to promote it, use it to promote people that really go to Rockfin for the bulk of it. So if you're new to my show and you're watching on YouTube, jump over to Rockfin. But that's it. That's Government Secrets, episode 29, the JFK saga conclusion.
All right, man. Good chatting, and I will see you in a week.
All right, buddy.
Later.
Bye. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please hit the like button, the subscribe button. Go to patreon.com/GrahamElwood and rockfin.com/GrahamElwood, where you can support the show. Also, I have a Bitcoin wallet, a Bitcoin Cash wallet, and an Ethereum wallet in the show notes. We're taking cryptocurrency. I have a Coinbase affiliation link. We're going to be getting on some other exchanges. So that's how you support the show. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. YouTube is unsubscribing us at an alarming rate. I have a PayPal button at GrahamElwood.com. I even have a Venmo at Graham-Elwood. There's a lot of ways to support our show. We are getting crushed by YouTube. We've dipped under 73,000 subscribers because of YouTube. Thanks for supporting what we do.